Lauran and Justin, thank you so much for being here. I know you traveled a long way to come be with all of our volunteer leaders, and we all really appreciate it a lot, so thanks very much. For those of you in the audience, Catching Up With is one of our online learning series. It's a web show where we interview interesting and notable alumni and get to learn a little bit more about their lives. And today we'll be doing just that with Lauran and Justin. And during the second half of today's programs, you'll be able to pose your own questions to the Tux. So as you saw, we have these microphones positioned around the room here. And when we start taking Q&A from the audience, just walk up to the microphone and ask your questions. You can start thinking of your questions now. Before we kick off the interview, we're actually going to show you a brief video that will introduce you to a little bit R.U.S.H for Literacy, the organization that the Tux co-founded and run together. So we're going to show a brief video.
We are here today at Alliance Academy in Oakland, California for our 7th annual season kickoff for R.U.S.H for Literacy. Education has always been the surest route to economic mobility in the United States. And so through the dual barrels of literacy and financial literacy, we hope to give kids opportunities for future success.
The thing I'm most excited about is we're going to have 400 kids in there excited about reading, excited to kick this program off, and get them excited about our contest where we're donating books that they will do essays on, and winners will get the opportunity to come to a Raiders game and be my guest for the day.
You get to go on the field with us before the game, while we're warming up, and you see all those big guys in black uniforms. You'll be right there with us. Then you get to go to the locker room after the game.
But I did have people that believed in me, did have people that pushed me forward, and when I was going through adverse times, I had people to, pick me up. So it's very important that kids understand that there are people out there that truly believe in them and truly want to see them succeed.
So obviously we're going to be talking about R.U.S.H for Literacy and all the amazing work you guys are doing, but we really like, in these Catching Up With programs, we like to start off at the beginning. So Lauran, we're going to start with you. Where did you grow up?
I am from Bensalem, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. It was a pleasure to meet some of the Philadelphia alumni last night.
And growing up, were you interested in going to Notre Dame? How did you end up deciding to go to school here?
I was very interested in coming to Notre Dame for 2 reasons. One, I have an older half-brother who is an alum and played on the football team as well. And also, I'm biracial. My mom's side of the family is Irish, so I grew up with lots of Notre Dame paraphernalia, and as a practicing Catholic, was really excited and visited Georgetown, Villanova, but Notre Dame was by far my favorite.
Made the right choice. All right. Justin, what was your childhood like growing up in Alabama?
I think you heard a little bit from Tim saying I grew up in a town of less than 200. That's not all the way accurate. It's actually 217 at the last census. So we cracked that barrier. Kellington, Alabama, man. I think for me, my experiences were totally different. I'm not Catholic, I'm Baptist. I grew up in the heart of SEC country, mainly Alabama. Crimson Tide, you can feel free to boo. So coming here, and I agree with the lady from Kansas City that talked about how do you turn Notre Dame down. That's basically my story. How do you turn Notre Dame down? Obviously, I couldn't, even when all the SEC schools, Florida States, whatever, were coming to recruit me. It was something completely different and just mesmerizing in a way about Notre Dame and how they went about their business. So yes, I signed on that dotted line and haven't looked back since, and it's been pretty much one of the greatest decisions of my life.
You obviously had a tremendous career on the field here at Notre Dame, still hold the all-time men's single-season sack records. What was your fondest memory from playing football for the Irish?
I mean, that's hard. When I think of fondest memories, I don't think of individual memories. I think of collective. I think my fondest memories involve just being around the guys, walking in that stadium for the first time. Because, I'm unlike a lot of the kids that come to Notre Dame, I didn't necessarily know anything about what it meant to wear that gold helmet. Obviously, as time went on, you learn about it. But like I said earlier, my perspective was, SEC football. So when I got here and walked through that tunnel and just seeing how, Father John talked about the people, that's the thing I remember most. Just the people you meet, the groundskeepers, the ushers, the fans. That's something that will always stay with me. And sure, we had great times on the football field, but I think that's secondary to the moments you spend with the people, and that's what I think I'll always hold nearest.
So how did the two of you meet on campus at Notre Dame?
Do you want to take this one, or?
This is a very complex answer. I think I'm gonna go the short route because I know you guys have a schedule. But long story short, doing the blue and gold games, we bring back old alumni and they kind of partner you at one of the dinners with old alumni. And as you heard,
Football alumni.
yeah, football alumni. So as you heard her say, her half brother is a former alum. And before I go into that story, I got to go into the story a few hours before the dinner. I'm walking out of the Barlow Hall, and this is before all the construction out here, when there actually used to be a road that goes through here. So I guess I'm dating myself because I'm old now. But it used to be a road that goes right here, and this guy kind of gestures over to me, for directions, and I give him directions because he asked me for the Joyce Center. And I could be the dumbest person in the world, but from the Barlow Hall to the Joyce Center, I pretty much pointed to the Joyce Center, right? So he proceeds to go the wrong way. And me and the Southern gentleman that I am, I kind of jog with no intent to catch him, but just as save face to try to tell him to go the other way, but he continued his way. So, long story short, we get to the dinner, and I sit at the table, and Greg Williams is sitting there, class of '84, and this very familiar-looking guy is sitting there right beside him. And I'm like, and he looks at me and goes, "You gave me the wrong directions." which in turn was Lauran's father.
Who can test that story?
Great introduction, huh? Great first impression. So we sit down and we're talking. And I am very stubborn in my own right, and I tell him that I did not give him the wrong directions. In small talk, I say that you don't listen very well, which to this day is still true. And I think he kind of liked me because I didn't necessarily back down, which still to this day is very true. But then this young lady comes up and sits down, and at the time Lauran was what's the term for early admittance?
Yeah, I was a senior in high school.
Senior in high school, 18-year-old, and it's your father and your brother there, so I'm like professional, hello, how are you, blah, 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 and sit right back down and don't make eye contact for the next hour or 2 hours we're sitting there. But she actually that's the first time we met, and I won't go into the story of my best friend loving her and I basically stole her from him. So that's a long story. So that's basically how we met.
There you have it.
So other than that one, what experiences at Notre Dame did you have that kind of shaped you as leaders and for your future careers?
I think for me, two experiences. The first with the Inter-Race Advisory Committee, which was a really powerful experience for me. As I mentioned, I'm biracial, and growing up, I think I had a strong sense of self, but I would often walk into groups, typically when you are in a new place, you want to assimilate, find people that are like you so you feel like you belong. And I realized when I got here, I wasn't exactly as sure of my identity as I thought I was. So I think that was really an experience where I felt validated, learned a lot about myself and how I could then relate to the world. And that was a really positive experience for me.
I think with me it was being voted captain on the football team, and one day getting pulled into Coach Willingham's office, and him basically telling me that you were voted captain not because you're obviously good at football, but because we see so much more in you from that regard as far as leadership, which again being 20 years old and focused on football, it never occurred to me that kids, and I say kids, 18-year-old, 19-year-old guys were looking at me in that regard. It was just like, I just want to go play football, play it well, and that's what I thought leadership was. I thought leadership was just football, tackle, sack, that. But after that meeting with Coach Willingham, he kind of challenged me to be more than that, to be, to have an identity with the guys outside the locker room, to walk in a way or live in a way in the classrooms, on the quads, at parties, or whatever it may be, that your ideal student athlete can model. And that's kind of when I realized that, when you put in that limelight or when you put in that situation, it's a lot more than just how you play on the football field. And, luckily for me, I got a hold of that because obviously playing in the NFL, and, you see so many guys that are uber talented that don't make it. And it's so much more than just how fast you run, how high you jump, or, how strong you are. It's a lot more to it than that. And, guys that are lucky enough to stay healthy and have long careers, I think you can equate 50-50, if not more, to the fact that, certain guys get it, and you see those guys. Those are the guys that you see making all pros or having national commercials, or the NFL is pubbing all the time, because that's the model student athlete. So I think, Coach Willingham, in that regard, kind of set me up to be successful, because before then I didn't necessarily think of it in that regard.
Lauran, when you were finishing up school here in 2006, did you know what you wanted to do for your career?
I thought I did. I didn't end up. So the year I graduated, I went and worked for the Hartford in media and community relations. And it's not such a stretch from what we've been doing with our foundation, the idea of corporate social responsibility and community relations. But I definitely saw myself more so. I was a marketing major, and more so in the corporate sector than the nonprofit. But Sunday was actually our 7-year wedding anniversary, and I've been really happy with the work that we've been doing with R.U.S.H. It's been very fulfilling, and I hope that we can grow that initiative.
Well, happy anniversary. I imagine we have some New England Patriots fans in the crowd here. And Justin, I imagine they might have some recurring nightmares from the way you played against the Patriots in the Giants' 2 Super Bowl victories over the Patriots. And a
few New York fans.
In that first Super Bowl win with the Giants, when the Patriots were undefeated and kind of considered the best football team of all time, you were one of the team leaders, one of the best players. How did that team keep believing in themselves that they could defeat against all the odds and the hoopla for the Patriots heading into that game?
I think for us, man, it always comes back to, and regardless if that's football, business, whatever it may be, it always comes back to being prepared. We were tremendously prepared for that game, and just that whole atmosphere. And I won't go into all the logistics of it, because it's so many things as far as Coach Coughlin, grew up in the coaching ranks with Belichick and whatever. But we were prepared, And we didn't allow ourselves to become so enamored with the spectacle of the Super Bowl that a lot of times in that situation, you see guys just get so gung-ho about, yeah, we're in the Super Bowl, that you forget you got to play a football game. So we were super prepared and super focused. And we had a great mix of great leaders, Michael Strahan, Antonio Pierce, Sammy Madison, and I say that's the older chef of the leadership group, but the younger chef as well, Eli Manning, myself, O.C. Manero, that it was like, it's almost like fate, and I'm so big on fate because fate is one of the reasons why I'm here, fate is one of the reasons why I met my wife, fate is one of the reasons why a lot of things have happened in my life. But it was almost like we felt as though there's no way we were going to lose. And some more other things that happened with Brady talking in the media that, kind of put us on a little edge there. But I mean, more than anything, it was just being prepared, man, and not letting the situation become bigger than what it was. At the end of the day, it was a football game that this is what we've done all our life. Go out and do what got us there.
You spent 9 years with the Giants and are now heading into your second year with the Raiders. You've obviously been around a lot of great players and coaches throughout your career. Who that you've been around in the game of football has taught you the most about leadership and helped you develop as a leader?
I would say Coach Coughlin, as a coaching, from a coaching perspective. I mean, he didn't really have to talk about it. He kind of just did it. As far as one of the more, straight and narrow guys you're ever going to meet. It was no confusion, no second guessing about what was expected of you. He pretty much does the same thing every day of the year. And what I learned from him is this: we won a Super Bowl, and the next day he was the first guy in the office, already evaluating film on what we were going to do next year, already making plans about what we were going to do next year. When guys were going out partying and enjoying the fruits of your labor, he was back in the office at 5:30 like he is every day, already preparing. And every off season, I would go up and talk to him, and he would have like 14 calendars on his board, and it'd be a calendar like version 1 of off-season programming, version 2 of off-season programming, and so on and so forth. And it taught me that in anything you do, regardless of successes or failures, stay the course. And I would say him, as far as a coaching, obviously as a player, Michael Strahan, obviously one of the NFL's greats. And not only on the field, but obviously you can see what he's doing off the field. He taught me a lot off the field as well, and just how to build your brand, but not necessarily allowing yourself to become an individual. Because the only success we have as individuals in our sport is through the team. But you still have to, brand yourself to be able to do the things you want to do off the field, to be able to be successful in philanthropy, business, media, whatever it may be. You're on the field, it's no question that I came into the league as this young stud that was doubted, due to replace him, which I couldn't, because he taught me so many things. He could still play the game right now just because of how much of a technician he was. And I'm giving you a long answer, but I don't think I would be anywhere in my career if I wouldn't have had the opportunity to sit behind a guy like Michael Strahan and watch how he prepared. 14 years in the league, 7 Pro Bowls, 7 All-Pros, and every day he came to practice, kind of like Coach Coughlin, in the same regard, go to work. And, I've kind of, adopted those, teachings in what I do.
So as Tim said in his introduction last night at dinner, you talked about how football is really secondary for you in life. What was it that made the two of you decide to found Tuck's Rush for Literacy?
He's saying there's slightly two different stories. We both knew that we wanted to give back in a meaningful way. And in his hometown, when we were, so backing up a step, I guess, as the two of us being students at Notre Dame, we had different experiences. And I think that our high school experiences had kind of prepared us. He went to a high school that didn't offer any AP classes. which when I was like, what? I didn't even know that was an option. You know, it seems like unfair that you would come in without having that. So we thought, okay, let's start in Coosa County, Alabama. And there weren't any nonprofits operating there at the time. So we said, okay, we'll do this ourselves. And that's sort of how we got rolling.
Well, I mean, she kind of talked a little bit about why. I thought she was going to give another story, but that works. So I remember in the 9th grade, I entered Central High School, Coosa County, and I get a history book, and you know how you have to write your name in the history book to make sure you always keep up with yours. Well, to say that this book was old and outdated is an understatement, because the first name in the book happens to be Jacqueline Tuck, which is my aunt. And that's twofold in a way, because that lets you know how small the town is. Because I'm in a county high school, my aunt's 17 years older than me, and I have a history book that's 17 years old, taped in the binding to keep it together. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but in 17 years ago, was the internet made? Was it exist? Twitter, all this stuff that we talk about that's so, profound now, wasn't even existed. So just imagine a kid in a history book, 17 years old, and what that history book did not talk about. And that's what I was learning. So it hit me then that, if I ever had the opportunity to do anything in regards to having this be, a difference maker, that's what I want to do. And, like she said, Notre Dame kind of really instilled in us, obviously our parents, my father instilled in me to really, in anything you do, give back. We didn't have much growing up. My dad never made more than, $40,000 a year with 7 kids. You can imagine how how tight things were. But he always found a way to give things back. That, obviously instilled in me that desire to give back as well. So once we got to New York, man, we were doing any and every event we could do around any philanthropy, any. I mean, like 3 to 4 events a week. And we sat down and it was like, you know what, we're doing all this work, but what do we have to show for it? What impact are we really making? We're going and shaking hands and drinking nice wines and writing a check here and there. But what impact are we really having? And that's when we kind of sat down and started to think about what we were very passionate about and what we wanted to help change. Obviously, education and young kids. And that's kind of how we started Touch Rush for Literacy, because obviously in education, you want to start at the beginning, and that's literacy.
And so what are some of the ways your organization has gone about promoting literacy in schools?
Well, so I think that we saw the research, we know there's an achievement gap, but recognizing that that is tied to an opportunity gap. And a big part of that is access to books. So that was the first thing we went about doing, providing books and reading materials to students individually, also to libraries in Title I schools in California, New York, New Jersey, Alabama. And we transitioned that into a summer program to combat summer learning loss in the summer slide. And another big thing is now the financial literacy, because some of the feedback we received from the schools that we worked with was, this is great. We see a difference in our students and how they're prepared when they come back in the fall. But a lot of them still don't think that college is a reality. They think they can never afford it. So there's a lot of research about the power of college savings accounts. And when you start with a savings account in your own name in kindergarten, if by the time you graduate you even have a few $100s in there, you're 3 times more likely to attend and 4 times more likely to graduate. So that's something that we started seeding accounts for children in a school in New York, partnered with City Foundation, who also does tutorials with parents to help them with savings, asset building. A lot of the families we work with are unbanked. So we really, we're still growing. We try and meet every challenge head on, and really working with the communities to say, what do you need? What can we do better?
And what's been your proudest moment so far since founding R.U.S.H?
I think for mine personally is, we put on an essay contest. We obviously donate books, but every book we donate, we ask kids to write essays on a certain topic, whether that's bullying or leadership or love, compassion, whatever it is. We kind of choose that, depending on which book we donate. I think for me, is the letters you get from parents. I've gotten parents that talk about, and we work with kids in some rough areas. Letters we talk about that, my son is obviously enjoying your program. Last night we had a shooting in the neighborhood, or bullets whizzed through our windows. But I see a change in my kids, just his or her perception on what's important. Parents talking about their kids wouldn't have dared picked up a book 3 months ago, but now they walk in at night and have to turn the light on because their son fell asleep with a book on his chest. That's something that is always gonna stay with me, because that's when you're having an impact. You can talk about money raised, you can talk about books donated, you can talk about all these stats, but it's the personal stories like that touch you. For me, when I'm reading an essay from a kid, you almost put yourself in his perspective. You almost put yourself in what he's seeing. And we're all privileged in this room, don't get me wrong. Like I told you earlier, my father, worked his butt off to make $40,000 a year, but I was privileged myself compared to some of the things that we see from these kids, and the pressures and the things that they have to deal with just from walking from their house to the school. I mean, I never had to deal with prostitution on the block, or a crackhead trying to sell me dope on the block. I never had to deal with things like that. My worst worries were, if I was going to be on a school bus and a cow jumped in the middle of the road to make me late. These kids have really advanced problems that obviously I don't know how I would have responded or reacted to those situations. Do I still value my education as a 13-year-old that's have gangs that trying to recruit me or trying to sell me dope or trying to recruit me to sell dope for them? I look at these things and I think about it, and that's what I think keeps us so passionate to try to make a difference. Because if you impact one kid, he's gonna go tell his friend, and maybe he gets that friend, and then those two guys are gonna go tell two more guys or two more girls, and they're gonna get those two. And before you know it, man, you started from this X number to reaching a community. I think that's why we are so passionate about what we do.
Lauran, you serve on a number of other boards for other charitable organizations, a lot of educational organizations, including you serve on the Performing Arts Advisory Council here at Notre Dame. Why is it so important broadly for you to give up so much of your time for these causes you care about, and maybe specifically too, why is it important to you to give back to Notre Dame in the way you do?
That's a great question. I think I spoke a little bit last night about Catholic social teaching and Catholic social justice, and it's something that I grapple with every single day. I don't, as much as I would love to have the, I don't know if commitment is the right word, of some of the priests and those among us who live in solidarity with the poor. I'm not on that extreme end, but I do feel a burden of where is that line, and with all of the opportunities that I've been given with my own education and where he is in his career and the different cities that we've lived in, I honestly feel like I can't do enough in terms of giving back. I try and keep my balance with the world in line and to give more than I take. So it's really feel like it's honestly the least I can do. And here at Notre Dame, a community that has given me so much. I mean, this is where I became an adult. This is where I really learned who I was. It's amazing to be able to work with the leadership here, and we support the And Kids World Film Festival in the summer that is free for the South Bend community. If professors want to come and bring their kids, any students happen to be here in the summer, and it's all free. So it's been really fun to be a part of that.
You both obviously devote so much of your time, it seems, to these causes that you care about, but you also obviously have very busy lives, not to mention, we haven't even mentioned you have two small children. For our volunteer leaders out there, what advice can you give them about how you stay motivated to, after a long day when you have so much else going on, to really take the time out to serve in the ways that you feel are important?
Go ahead.
Well, I'll start off by saying I came in at the end of Dolly's presentation, but I think the sheer fact of the amount of money you guys have raised towards scholarship funds and how many students you've been able to help attend the university and to lift a burden from them and their family and for their future, I think that is absolutely incredible. And I know that for myself, there, as you said, we have two little guys, and there are definitely a lot of times where, the babysitter cancels or something happens, and I'm on a conference call and you can hear them in the background. But it's still, it's God's work, and it's important. And people, I appreciate every single person in this room, and I think that even if you don't hear it every day, volunteers, you are absolutely appreciated, and the university, the world couldn't function without you.
When much is given, much is due. I love that. And, I know for a fact I'm very aware of the platform that, playing football in the NFL provides, us to make a difference. I think what other than what I just said earlier about, why we're so passionate about it, but it drives us because we know that it's affecting young lives. And if you ever heard me speak, I always talk about this concept I have of when I'm old and gray, about sitting on a porch somewhere, overlooking a lake, sipping on sweet tea. I'm a sweet tea guy. And realizing that, we got a saying in football. When you retire, they say make sure you have no plays left, because if you have plays left, where are you going to use them? I'm not going to be 35 years old going to the sandlot playing with kids because I got plays left. When I leave the game, I want to be done. I want to be so. The same thing when I'm old and gray. I don't want to look back and say, man, what if I would have helped that kid? What would he have turned into, or what difference could I don't want to be sitting there saying that. It's 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, blah, 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 blah. And, certain people get a lot done in that time, and certain people don't. I've always been of the mind that as long as I can, I will, because that's why God has put us here. God didn't, put us here to focus on ourselves. I think the biggest thing that we can do as human beings is be a part of service to others, that's what we do, man. It's not really complicated when I think of it. They always ask you the question, why you do this? Well, why not do it? What's the alternative? I got a nice couch at home I can be sitting on. That's why we do what we do.
Way to go.
The Alumni Association is launching this year a new program called the Hesburgh Service Initiative. We're going to be hearing about it later on in the conference. And it really focuses on partially not just performing service, but really advocacy and really understanding the issues that you're hoping to make a difference with. And you two are obviously seem to be just great examples of that. You speak so passionately about literacy and the issues you care about. How important is it, do you think, that volunteers really immerse themselves in the subject matters in which they'll be serving?
I think it's paramount. And I can speak from a mistake. I think in all great things you have failures. And for us, in maybe the third or fourth year of Tux Rush for Literacy, I met someone who was on the board of Sesame Workshop, which is the nonprofit arm of Sesame Street. And I thought, who knows early literacy better than these folks? So, let's get them to work with some of our kids. And I kind of forced a program on one of our Alabama schools because I thought these are just the most amazing resources, but they didn't have the computers, we were too far ahead, and with the regular curriculum, it was on my part philanthropic paternalism. And I think that I learned then and there that before I embarked on another initiative or partnership, I needed to get back to our roots and make sure, there's broad research Then there's the individual, whether you're working in a rural community or an urban setting. I mean, it's complicated. There's no silver bullet. It's not one size fits all. But I think it is absolutely paramount when you've got these precious resources of time and money to make sure that they're being used most effectively in the way that the community needs it.
You see why I married her. One of the reasons why.
So we have a number of volunteer leaders here. We're going to be taking their questions in a minute, but they're leaders of clubs, classes, and groups, and they're often involved in planning service projects and service initiatives. If folks are interested in getting involved with and supporting Tuck's Rush for Literacy, how can they do that?
Thanks. I think the easiest way is probably to go to our website, which is rushforliteracy.org. And from there, there's an info button, there's a donate now button. I think that whether we've had people do book drives for us, we've had people in different areas just let us know about projects that we could fund. We also write grants if it's within our sphere. But all of that information is accessible through our website.
All right, so now we're going to open it up to your questions. If you've got questions for the Tucks, just step up to the microphones in the front of the rooms here and fire away. We got some time for them.
Name and club name.
Yeah, give us your name and your club, class, or group name.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Hoffmeister. I'm from Albany, New York, and I was talking a little bit with Lauran last night. You guys have a lot of fans, obviously, in upstate New York. I'm the incoming Region 18 alumni board person, and so appreciated what you guys had to say last night. And one thing I was going to ask, Justin, if you could share with some of the people here, you talked last night about ask your why, and I thought that was great. And I was just wondering if you could just talk about that for a second.
So in football, I always get commissioned to kind of go and talk to the younger guys coming in, and I always ask them, I always tell them basically, you have to know your why. And in sports in general, a lot of us come from low-income families, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of guys have their whys. Their whys as far as why I want to play this sport. I want to, move my parents from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, or, some guys, I want to make a lot of money, or I want to be famous. Whatever it may be, everyone has their whys, and that's the same in anything you do. Everybody in this room, whether you thought about it, you know it directly, or you don't know it, you have your whys for what you do, and I think that's something that's very important, because all of us are going to have rainy days. All of us are going to have situations that it seems like we don't have answer to. All of us are going to have days when it seems like we can't do anything wrong, and we start feeling ourselves, and that word humble is a distant memory. But what brings you back to center through good and bad is knowing your why. I have a lot of whys, and for certain things that I'm involved in, those whys are different. And as I get older, someone passes out of my life, or some situation changes, that why might change. But I'm very conscious of the whys of why I do things. And again, regardless of what it is, when you get faced with an obstacle or even successes, those whys are what keeps you kind of straight and narrow. And thanks for the question.
All right, from our local club here.
My name is TJ Brecht. I'm from the Notre Dame Club of St. Joseph Valley. You guys are obviously very busy in a lot of philanthropic areas. How do you choose, though, what to do, and how do you kind of keep that balance between your work life? And I'm sure you get pulled in 50 different directions, but how do you prioritize and figure out what you're able to do and what you want to do, and how do you keep that balance? Because you seem to do a very good job of making that work.
It hasn't always been like that. I am very bad. Well, I used to be very bad at saying no. And regardless of if it was in my, atmosphere of quote unquote expertise or not, anything that was perceived on as far as doing good. We used to do it. Like I said earlier, we used to go to events at the Wazoo. You know, seemed like every night we was at an event. So I think we learned from that because, like I said, we didn't feel like we was having an impact. So I think now, for me personally, obviously Lauran might have a different answer to this, but for me personally, I like to do things where I understand the impact that I'm going to have on it. You know, we don't just go out there and do everything in education if it doesn't fall within our sphere. And that, you know, it's tough because obviously you want to be a part of everything if you can, and it's so many great programs and so many great initiatives that, you know, we had to say no to because it didn't really fall in line with, you know, our mission statement.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and just add on that it's become more about being proactive than reactive. I think we were invited to do so many things. We were just reacting and saying yes, yes, yes. And then once we realized, you know, this is the area that we're passionate about, we started to be proactive in identifying organizations, whether like the grade level reading campaign or people that were already out in that sector and doing that work and doing it really well and trying to just help them rather than reacting and trying to make it fit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
More questions from the audience?
Justin, Lauran, how are you? I'm Morvek from the Notre Dame Club. For clubs like ours who are looking for a service organization to be something we can adopt, do you have plans to spread R.U.S.H around the country, or is that something you want to hold closer to where you?
We get that question a lot. I think we want to hold it. And the reason why is this. We could go out and fundraise, and believe me, we have people that ask us all the time about, you know, where can we donate and, you know, how can we be involved. And, you know, it's a good and bad thing of being in New York and San Francisco because obviously there's a lot of successful people in those areas. The reason why I think we want to keep R.U.S.H a little smaller than some other guys is for us, it's not about saying, oh, we're in 50 states. Like I said earlier, it's not about the stats. It's about the experiences. It's about the impact. And I get a kick out of being able to go to schools and remember kids' names and ask Johnny, you know, how he did on his reading test, or, you know, ask, you know, Susie how her mother's, you know, doing. I like to have that, you know, that intimate feel with our kids, with our teachers, with our schools. So yeah, I would like. What I'm doing now is commissioning other guys in the same platform as me to get involved in the areas that they're in, to have, you know, the Eli Mannings or the Tom Brady's or the, you know, whoever it may be in an area do some work like this where I don't, you know, Tucker Russell Literacy can stay in the areas that, you know, impact me because obviously I'm going to be more passionate about New York, Alabama, Notre Dame, California, because those communities have, you know, helped me thrive. So I'm more in line with commissioning other guys that are in Boston, Charlotte, or you know, Florida, wherever it may be, that they will get involved with the work in their own entity. I hope that answered your question.
Tim.
Yeah, I'm Tim O'Neill from Minneapolis. I was just curious, some of the Minnesota high schools and grade schools have seen declining population among football players, just because of the concussions and the physicalness of the sport. And I'm just curious with your boys, if you've got a strong feeling either way on long-term effects of that, and if you have any opinions on it.
I think at heart we have the same answer to this, but he'll probably want to give his own version in a minute. I'm not eager, and people ask me, you know, as his wife, is it difficult to watch him and go out every Sunday? For me, it's not, because ever since I've known him, this is what he does. He's a professional, he's very good at it. It doesn't cross my mind. But for my babies, who I'm in charge of, it's a different thing, and I think he's also, in a position on the line that's different than being a tight end that comes across and gets hit in a certain way, and there's no way I could choose what my children would play. And I would also say I have a younger sister who is a neurosurgeon and has already kind of put her aunt and godmother foot down that she'd rather not have to deal with that with them. So they have shown to be pretty athletic, even though they're small, but we may try and steer them in other directions. That's
We do have the same answer in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it's for different reasons. My father once told me that I work at Russell Corporation, all these godforsaken hours, so hopefully one day you won't have to. And I'm going to tell my sons that I went around and acted like a barbarian on a football field, because hopefully one day you won't have to. I love the game of football. It's afforded me a lot of luxuries in life that obviously I wouldn't have without it. But I understand the dangers that game brings forth. Concussions is a different topic for me because God bless, I've never had one. And I think the reason why I haven't never had one because I've never been the guy that wanted to knock another guy out. I've always said, you know what, my job is to tackle you, and I'm going to do that as safely for me and you, because I don't want to be that guy. I talked to Lawrence Taylor a lot, and one of the more famous plays Lawrence Taylor is a part of is for all you guys who know football is basically ending Theismann's career. That still haunts him to this day. I've never wanted to be a part of knocking a guy out. So every time I hit a guy, I make sure my head is out of it. That's why they give us shoulder pads. I use them. But to answer your question about my sons, I have no problem with my sons playing any sport. All I ask them to do is whatever they choose to do, they do it 100%, and they go about it in that regard. If I had a magic wand and could say, what I want my sons
Golf.
to do. Jordan Spieth looks real good right now. Left-handed pitcher, maybe. But seriously though, I would like my son to honestly be a nerd, and that's a maybe that's a wrong word. But I want my son to be a scholar. I want my son to do things that I didn't do. That's what my father wanted for me because, like I said, football is allowing me to be in different places. I want him to be in a different place for me. I want him to experience different things than I experienced. And that's why I didn't name him Justin Tuck Jr. I don't want him to be Justin Tuck. I want him to be Jace Leroy Tuck or Jonah Frederick Tuck. I want them to go and do what they want to do. And if that happens to be football, then yeah, I'll have some reservations about it, but I'll also tell them, this is what it is. This is what you need to stay away from. This is how you play the game. And if they do that, then they'll be fine. I understand her logic because that's the mother. My mother didn't want me playing football. She never came to any of my games. She hated the fact that I played football. She literally, my mother doesn't cuss, but she literally verbally defiled me one day when I told her I'm going to Notre Dame to play football. You have basketball scholarships. Why you don't go play basketball? Because I like hitting people.
All right, we have time for one last question here.
Hi, I'm Bridget Beemeyer from the Club of DC and also class of '05. I think what you're doing is amazing, and I love that you're incorporating financial literacy into this because it's such an important part of the literacy equation. So I was wondering if you could talk a little more about that and how you incorporate that into your programs and into your interaction with the parents as well as the students.
Sure. So we work with CFED, actually out of Washington, D.C., the Policy Center. They've got a lot of great research and programs around these college savings accounts for kindergarten students. And we've been working with them. We also worked with City Foundation. And the gist of the program is when Yeah, the one-to-one fund is another partner. But the gist of the program is when a student enters kindergarten, they get $100 in a savings account that is seeded by a philanthropist. And then they can put in match dollars up to $100 a year that, well, they can put in as much as they want. It gets matched up to $100 a year. And it's basically works as a scholarship, so it's not taxed in the same way as a 529, or so it doesn't de-incentivize savings, which is sometimes a problem for lower income families. And basically that, along with that program, there are workshops for parents. So, and I mean, that covers such a, from your mortgage to just how to set up, you know, how to balance a checkbook, how to set up a monthly budget. A lot of people don't realize, you know, they get a check and they cash it and they spend it for the month, and there are fees attached to that. So really trying to change the culture and get people to be more comfortable with that. This is actually our newest project that I feel really excited about, and I think that there are a lot of other banks. I actually met a gentleman last night who was saying that his firm has some materials around this, and I think it'll be really exciting to see how we can help this next generation that's growing up in a cycle of poverty to understand asset building and the importance of savings. Sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. He's going to add something to that. Thank you for your question. This is like somewhat intertwined, but he was saying, we also heard from a few people from the Silicon Valley and Northern California clubs, and you may or may not be football fans, but Super Bowl 50 is next year, and it's going to be in San Jose with the 49ers, and they've created an entity called the 50 Fund. They want this to be the most generous Super Bowl ever. And so Tux Rush for Literacy has been a big part in this endeavor, and if that's something that anyone in this room is interested to get involved in, then please do go to our website, whether there's a big literacy, financial literacy push. I think there would be a lot of ways to get involved in something that is potentially going to be really big and positively impact a lot of people.
Well, Lauran and Justin, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Thanks for sharing your story, and Tim O'Neill,
Thank you for having us.
On behalf of the Alumni Association, has some gifts here for you.
I just want to say thank you guys for having us. Obviously, to us, Notre Dame is a special place, and you know, unfortunately, we don't get the opportunity to come back as much as we would like. But every time we come back, man, it's almost kind of like coming back for the first time. So I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you guys, and you know, obviously, if there's anything that we ever can do, we're easy to find. Please reach out to us, and we can see if there's some synergies there. We would love to, you know, obviously get the opportunity to talk to all of you, but unfortunately, in my line of work, I can't stay in one place really long. And you know, as he said earlier, football is secondary. It is. You know, my coach didn't want me to be here today. I kind of vetoed that because the work that you guys do and what we all do is so powerful and so impactful. So I know I don't have to say this, but I just want to say, continue to do what you're doing. Regardless if you see it or not, you're having such an impact on so many people's lives, and you're making the world a better place because of it. So God bless, and go Irish.